Hey everybody, welcome back to Let's Talk. My name is John, and today here on the channel, we're going to be talking about 2010's The Town. And we're also going to be talking about its 2016 4K Blu-ray and its 2020 4K Steelbook. But before we get into that 4K Blu-ray review, I like to give a film review, and this film review will have some spoilers in it, so if you want to know nothing about this film and you want to go into it blind, skip ahead to the 4K Blu-ray review right now. So The Town was directed by Ben Affleck. This was the second film he ever directed after Gone Baby Gone. He wasn't actually originally supposed to direct this movie. Originally, it was supposed to be directed by Adrian Lyne. This film was actually bought by Paramount Pictures in 2003 before the book came out. The book Prince of Thieves actually was released in 2004, so they basically auctioned that book off right away. They knew this movie was going to be big once they eventually got it made. They brought in Adrian Lyne, the guy who directed Jacob's Ladder, Fatal Attraction. You know, it would be a very different movie if Adrian Lyne had directed this one. And apparently he had his eyes on a 3.5-hour crime epic film, very similar to Heat. Apparently Heat was a huge inspiration on this movie. And when you watch the movie, even Ben Affleck's The Town, you could definitely see that Heat was a huge inspiration on this movie. And it's all for the better because this is the second greatest heist film of all time, only behind Michael Mann's Heat. And it's going to be almost impossible for any heist film to ever reach the levels that Heat reached. It's one of the greatest films ever made. One of the greatest action films ever made. But The Town is a great film in its own right. It is so well made, it's so well directed, so well acted. In this movie, Ben Affleck, besides directing, co-writing this movie, he also stars in this movie as McCrae. He's one of 4 friends who are bank robbers in the Boston area. They're from Charlestown. That's a big reason why this movie is called The Town, is because they're talking about guys who come out of Charlestown at the beginning of this movie. It says that this is basically a breeding ground for bank robbers. Now, people in Charlestown have obviously pushed back against that because they don't want their area being known as this type of area, an area that produces criminals. And honestly, I do think that this is probably one of the top 3 greatest Boston films of all time. I think the greatest Boston film of all time, in my opinion, is Good Will Hunting, followed by The Verdict. And then The Town is right up there with those other 2 films. And honestly, I can alternate between those 3 films because when I rewatched The Town last night, I always forget how good this movie is. I mean, Chris Klein is in this movie for one scene, and that scene is absolutely epic, watching him talk to his son.
So I told you, if you looked around, you might find her. Let's give you an activity. I didn't think you'd carry it like a disease. Oh, you want to think she was an angel? Go ahead.
And just kind of explaining what happened in his childhood, how his mother was basically just a junkie, which is just, it's insane that the father was just laying it out to him like that. You know, I felt bad for you. You know, you were looking for her. He knew all along where his mother was, but he just didn't have the heart to tell him. You can see he cares about his son, but he's a lifelong criminal, and his son's following in his footsteps. His son, though, he had a chance to get out. That's the thing about McCrae. He could have been a professional hockey player. It just didn't work out, and unfortunately, he got sent back home, and he fell right back into the lifestyle, you know, teaming up with his buddy Jem, played by the great Jeremy Renner, and he received the most acting recognition for this movie.
They told me Brendan Leahy was coming down here to roll up on you with a Glock 21, so I came over here, and I put him in the fucking ground.
And it might be Jeremy Renner's best movie. It's either this or Wind River. You know, Jeremy Renner, he's a great actor. He just never really gets the recognition of, like, one of the greatest actors working today. He's always just very solid, but this might be one of his best performances. He really does fall into the role. Like, you're scared of this guy, but you know he means well. He cares about McCrae. He cares about his friends, and he did something for McCrae back in the day that he keeps bringing up, you know, like, and McCrae knows. He's like, I gotta return the favor to you. I owe you so much because I'd be dead without you. He went to jail for 9 years for the guy, so of course he's loyal to him. And that's the thing. These 4 friends, they do stick together, but McCrae wants to get out. And during the opening robbery, which there are 3 big robbery sequences in this movie, all so well directed, well done. You can see everything clearly. It's just a very well orchestrated heist movie. Like, I love Point Break, but the heists in this movie, they feel a little bit more realistic. You know, they really get the tension building, you know, especially the big one at the very end when they rob Fenway Park. That's a huge Boston thing, which is really funny because they actually had the world premiere, the United States premiere for this movie at Fenway Park. So Boston really embraced this movie, which I absolutely love because it really is one of the greatest Boston films of all time. And it also gives to us one of the best Blake Lively performances. Blake Lively really gets a lot of crap for how she acts, but she's a phenomenal actor when she wants to be. She's great in this movie, and she's also great in A Simple Favor, which I absolutely love her in as well. And then, of course, we get John Hamm working on the other side. You know, we have our criminals, and then we have our cops. And the big difference between this and Heat is, you know, in Heat, we kind of spend an equal amount of time with the cops as we do with the criminals. This one, it's really just John Hamm representing the cops, and he is a smart cop, man. And he has no care in the world other than catching his guy. He'll flip on a dime on you. And we see that right away with Rebecca Hall. At first, he seems very sympathetic to her situation. You know, she's in the opening robbery scene. And this is kind of where McCrae starts to show a little bit of that heart. He feels bad for her, and then he ends up, taking up a relationship with her, which is absolutely insane. Jeremy Renner might be a little bit off base, but he's absolutely right. You're going to blow up the whole thing. The one person who can finger us, you're out here dating her right now? Yeah. Jeremy Renner might be a hothead, but he's not wrong in this situation. Why don't you choose to rob banks? I get it, you want to have a regular life, but there really is no option for a regular life, which actually does bring us to the alternate ending for this movie, which you cannot find on the 4K disc. I don't even think you can find it on YouTube. Apparently in the alternate ending, Ben Affleck's character at the very end of the real movie, the one at the end of the extended cut and the theatrical cut, we see that he gets away to Florida. He's the only one who escapes. He leaves the money for Rebecca Hall's character, but it looks like he's going to get to start that new life. There's a line in the movie that Ben Affleck says, no matter how much you want to change, you can't outrun your past. So in the alternate ending, he ends up getting killed by a couple of gang members that him and Jem had apparently picked on earlier in the movie. So of course his past finally does catch up to him, which is a little bit more poetic, and that's apparently the ending that Ben Affleck would prefer. He also prefers the extended cut of the film. I too prefer the extended cut of the film. Now the extended cut of the film, though, it adds about 30 more minutes. It might not add anything that's really going to make the plot of the movie better, but I really do think it helps to develop the characters a little bit more, especially Ben Affleck and Rebecca Hall's relationship, which does make the ending feel a lot more important, which is always the best thing you can do with an extended cut of the film. It's very similar to T2 or what a lot of people feel about Aliens. I feel like the Aliens theatrical cut that was a little bit tighter, and the Town theatrical cut is a little bit tighter as well, but I actually do still prefer the extended cut. The only thing that kind of sucks, and we'll talk about in the 4K Blu-ray review, if you want to watch that extended cut, it's only on the Blu-ray, and it doesn't feature that alternate ending. I actually am glad it doesn't feature that alternate ending. I like that we kind of get sent home with somewhat of a happy ending, because, everybody at the end of this movie is not walking away happy, so it'd be nice to send the people watching this movie home happy instead of watching McCrae get killed, although that would definitely be the more poetic ending, and honestly, it would make a lot more sense based on the film that they're trying to show us here. Crime doesn't pay. Even if you want to change, you can't run away from it. You made this decision. You didn't have to make this decision, despite the fact that your environment pretty much guided you towards this from the time you were born, that you were going to end up here, but it was just too little too late, and that's one thing. Ben Affleck's performance in this movie is fantastic, but Jeremy Renner gives the best performance in this movie. But anyway, I'll keep rambling on about The Town, because I do think that this is one of the greatest heist movies ever made, and I do think that this is Ben Affleck's best film that he ever directed, and is the best performance he has ever given in his entire career. This is just basically the pinnacle of Ben Affleck. This is the Ben Affleck we always want to come back, and as far as being a director goes, yes, he won the Academy Award for Best Picture with Argo, but I still think The Town is his best picture. And Air, that came out last year, is a great sign of more good things to come from Ben Affleck, the director, and Ben Affleck, the actor. He is very unappreciated. I think we're still talking about Ben Affleck from the tabloid era, and it's really unfortunate, because the guy really is a great actor, great writer, and he's a great director, and he deserves a lot more love, but people do get fixated on him dating Jennifer Lopez, or now being married to Jennifer Lopez, and he doesn't really deserve that from a professional standpoint. And honestly, if you haven't seen The Town, definitely check this one out, and maybe you want to check it out on this 4K Blu-ray that we're going to talk about right now.
Where's your purse?
Well, here it is, The Town on 4K Steelbook, and this Steelbook actually was released in 2020. The original 4K Blu-ray actually came out in December of 2016, so that's a very, very, very old 4K Blu-ray. It came out from Warner Brothers, and just like most Warner Brothers releases, it only has HDR10 on it, and the 4K Blu-ray is not a native 4K, it's actually a 2K upscaled to 4K. This is something that they were always doing back in the early days of 4K Blu-ray, is they were upscaling it, but this movie was shot on 35mm film, so if they were to actually go back and rescan this now, we could get it in native 4K. It's just they would have to go back and do the work all over again. But at this point, this 4K Blu-ray has been out for almost 8 years now. One of the earliest 4K Blu-rays out there, and at the time when this 4K Blu-ray actually first came out, I didn't buy it. I wasn't buying 4K Blu-rays until 2017, and then I remember my wife was getting surgery, not a crazy surgery, something that they did in the office, and I was in the parking lot waiting for her to get done, because at the time, I think it was during COVID, or it was just before, or COVID had just started, but I wasn't allowed in the office, and I was listening to a podcast, the Rewatchables from The Ringer, and they were talking about The Town, and I was like, man, I haven't seen The Town in years. I'm a 4K Blu-ray collector. I'm like, let me go see how much the 4K Blu-ray is. The 4K Blu-ray was completely out of print at the time. People were reselling them on eBay for a lot of money, and I was like, no, I'm not buying that. And luckily, my patience paid off, and eventually, a few months later, this 4K Steelbook came out, and it's the exact same discs that are in that 4K Blu-ray. There are no differences. They didn't give us Dolby Vision or anything like that. that. Everything is exactly the same. The exact same DTS HD 5.1 is on here. All the same extras, which are all going to be on your Blu-ray disc. So before I go a little bit too far, let's look at this 4K steelbook because it is very nice. It's got this nice matte finishing to it. You know, you come on the back and there's Jeremy Renner and Ben Affleck. They're about to rob Fenway Park. You come inside, 2 discs, 1 Blu-ray and 1 4K Blu-ray, and that Blu-ray is the previously released Blu-ray, so that will feature the scan from 2010 on there, and that's where all of your extras will be. And the extras are pretty cool. The only thing is the menu system is a little bit sloppy to get to those extras because it's one of those extras that were on Batman Begins and The Dark Knight where you can see Ben Affleck and other people talking about how they did certain scenes in the movie, and those are really the only extras. That, and there's 2 commentary tracks, both with Ben Affleck over the extended cut of the movie and the theatrical cut of the movie. So the extras were a little bit unorganized, but there are a good amount of them, and I did really appreciate that. I still would have liked a little bit more, honestly. I still felt like I just felt like there could have been more there, but again, this was coming out in an era where the extras were kind of in a state of flux. They were trying to do too much with the Blu-ray discs. You know, they got the Blu-ray Live on there. It's filled with trailers before you even get to the movie, so this does feel like a 2010 Blu-ray disc, except for the visual and audio. It's got that DTS HD 5.1 on there. It's the same thing that would eventually carry over to the 4K, and that is a pretty solid DTS HD 5.1. Almost no complaints about it, you know, other than the fact that I think now in 2024 we can update it a little bit more, but it actually made pretty good use of the channels. I was very, very, very impressed with it, to be honest with you guys. Didn't knock my socks off or anything, but for a DTS HD 5.1 that at this point has been out for 14 years, I was very, very, very surprised with it. They did a great job with this DTS HD 5.1. Now, even the shootouts, they all sounded great. You could hear bullets coming from different channels. That's always something I appreciate. That means they went in there and they actually put some effort into the mix, and I can absolutely appreciate that. And now the visuals, like I was saying, this is a 2K upscale to 4K, so that means that the Blu-ray and the 4K Blu-ray, just like when we were talking about the accountant last week, you know, there's not a huge gap from the Blu-ray to the 4K Blu-ray. The biggest thing that you're going to notice is because of the HDR10, the 4K is just much, much, much brighter, and you're hitting those deep blacks, and the skin's going to look a lot more natural. But it's not the biggest gap that you'll ever see. I'm telling you, the thing you're going to notice most is the brightness. Now, that Blu-ray is actually very, very, very solid. It's not a bad Blu-ray at all. That just shows you that the source material is great. This is a very cool looking film, very blues and grays. You know, the sky for the most part in this movie is very gray. Everyone's wearing blues, blacks. You know, this isn't a very warm feeling movie in general, and it's not colored warmly intentional. So I think that you actually did a great job of carrying over that look from the Blu-ray over to the 4K Blu-ray. And for a 2016 4K Blu-ray, this is one of the best that I've seen from that 2016 and 2017 era. It really wasn't too many great ones coming out. They were still figuring out the technology. And even this 4K Blu-ray, as good as it is, it doesn't compare to a 2023 or 2024 4K Blu-ray. There's definitely a lot of room for improvement, but not as much as other 4K Blu-rays from that era I've seen. This does still at least feel like a 4K Blu-ray. It doesn't feel like a high-end Blu-ray, which I can definitely appreciate. It's definitely still the best way to watch The Town is on this 4K Blu-ray. But I was saying earlier, if you like the extended cut, and I personally prefer the extended cut, the only way you can watch that is on the Blu-ray. So it'd be nice if eventually we get a brand new re-release of this, you know, maybe do the scan over so it's a native 4K now instead of being a 2K upscale. The audio's still really good. You might not have to touch too much of that up, but it would also be nice to get the extended cut in 4K Blu-ray because people like me, and I'm sure a lot of other people out there would prefer that cut, but because I'm such a quality snob and I just can't help myself, knowing that the 4K Blu-ray is right there, I'm probably not going to put that extended cut Blu-ray in until it eventually comes to 4K Blu-ray, and we really don't know if that's ever going to happen, so that's just something that's going to be on me. But overall, this is a very, very, very solid 4K Blu-ray. It's the best way to check out The Town, and this 4K Blu-ray is usually not that expensive. I believe right now it's only 15 bucks, and that's a pretty good price, and I'm sure if you wait around for a sale, you can get this one for like 10 bucks too, which would be an absolute steal, because at the end of the day, it's still a great movie, and this is the best possible way to check out the movie, and without a new release on the horizon, I would definitely recommend you guys grab this 4K Blu-ray. And how would I rate this 4K Blu-ray on a score of 1 to 10? I'd still give The Town from 2016 on 4K a really solid 8 out of 10. I mean, this is still a great movie. This is a very, very solid 4K Blu-ray. It's the best way to check out this movie, so I don't really have too many complaints about it. And guys, it is also Friday, and that means it's time for our digital code giveaway. In every single video we do on Friday, we ask you guys 2 digital code giveaway questions. All you have to do is answer one of those in the comment section below, and as long as you do that, you come back to Tuesday's video, we put your name on a magic wheel, we spin that wheel 2 times, the 2 names it lands on, and they have their choice. The digital codes that you see on your screen before you, today. And it's funny because we've gotten a lot of donations of digital codes lately. Of course, it's from Warner Brothers. I go inside, and what do you know? There's a digital code that expired in 2022. Thank you, Warner Brothers. I really do appreciate your commitment to giving us all the digital codes we could ever want, especially since you promoted that as a 4K Blu-ray with a digital code packed in. Always appreciate that. So, of course, that means that the Goonies will not be available for you on 4K digital, which is very unfortunate because I'm pretty sure now that there are no Goonies digital codes floating around in any of these discs that are up to date, if I know Warner Brothers like I think I do. But enough of me getting off topic about Warner Brothers being greedy because I can go on all day. So what do I want to ask you guys this week? Well, The Town, like I was saying, is one of my top 2 favorite heist movies of all time. I wanted to ask you guys, what is your favorite heist movie of all time? It doesn't have to be a bank robbery movie. Any movie involving a heist. If you want to include Logan Lucky from Steven Soderbergh, that doesn't involve a bank in that heist. That's them robbing a racetrack. Then, you know, Steven Soderbergh also made the Ocean's Trilogy where they're robbing casinos. So whatever heist movie you guys want to pick, let me know. And we don't really talk too much about genres. I just want to know from you guys, what is your favorite genre of film? That could be any genre. If you want to just simply say action, you can do that. But if you want to include subgenres like, you know, action thrillers, action horrors, you know, stuff like that, leave that answer in the comment section below. And of course, don't forget to come back to Tuesday's video. We'll put your name on that magic wheel and we'll spin that bad boys and maybe you'll get lucky. But anyway, that's going to do it here for me on another episode of Let's Talk. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. And if you did, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, turn notifications on. Maybe you even want to become a channel member. We have a friends of the channel tier. We have a producers tier where you're going to find John Doe Juggalo, Jason Barton, and Mr. Smelly Potato. We also have a directors tier where you're going to find Frank from Frank's Medium Reviews. Make sure you guys head over to John Doe Juggalo and Frank's Medium Reviews channels. Give them a subscribe, and I promise you won't regret it. But if you got no money to throw our way, guys, don't you worry about it. We just appreciate you checking out this video. We hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure you guys get out in those streets and tell your friends about us. And then we'll be seeing you around.